Have you ever woken up in the middle of the night with that strange feeling that something's not quite right? It's quiet, almost too quiet. Well, that's exactly how this story begins for 28-year-old Melissa from Ohio. It was an ordinary Tuesday night. Melissa was home alone because her husband, David, was away on a business trip. The house was settled, the dog was asleep at the foot of her bed, and everything was perfectly normal, until it wasn't. At precisely 2:47 a.m., Melissa's eyes snapped open. She wasn't sure what woke her. There was no sound, no sudden noise. It was just an abrupt transition from deep sleep to full, heart-pounding awareness. The first thing she noticed was a soft glow coming from the hallway. The hallway light was on. She distinctly remembered switching it off before she went to bed. It was part of her nightly routine. Lock the doors, check the windows, turn off the lights. She did it every single night without fail. She squinted into the brightness, her eyes struggling to adjust. Maybe she was just groggy, dreaming. Maybe her husband had come home early and forgotten to tell her. But she knew that was unlikely. He wasn't due back for another 2 days. Lying there in the silence, she strained her ears, listening for any sign of movement. Nothing. Just the faint hum of the refrigerator from downstairs. She slowly pushed herself up, leaning on her elbows. And that's when she saw it. At the far end of the hallway, framed by the doorway of the spare bedroom, stood a figure. It was a man. Or at least, it had the shape of a man, tall, broad-shouldered, and completely shrouded in shadow. He was just standing there, perfectly still. No movement, no sound, just standing. Melissa's heart leaped into her throat. Her first thought was pure, primal fear. There's an intruder in my house. Every horror movie scenario she'd ever seen flashed through her mind. But then, a wave of confusion washed over her. Her hallway wasn't very long, maybe 10, 12 feet at most. The floors were old hardwood. They creaked with the slightest pressure. If someone had broken in, she would have heard something. The dog would have barked his head off. But Buster was still fast asleep, not even twitching. The figure remained motionless. It was so dark in the hallway that she couldn't make out any features. No face, no clothes. It was just a solid, man-shaped silhouette against the light. Then, something happened that made the hairs on her arms stand up. The figure's head tilted, just a fraction, a slow, deliberate movement. It was as if it was listening for her, listening to her. Melissa froze, every muscle in her body tensed. She couldn't breathe. She was trapped. Her mind raced, trying to come up with a rational explanation. A trick of the light, a pile of laundry she'd forgotten about. But no. This was too defined, too solid. This was a person. She knew she had to call for help. Her phone. She needed her phone. She instinctively reached for her nightstand, her fingers fumbling in the dark. It wasn't there. A fresh jolt of panic shot through her. Where was it? Then she remembered, with a sickening drop in her stomach, that she'd left it charging in the kitchen. The kitchen, right at the bottom of the stairs, directly accessible from that very hallway. The intruder was standing between her and her only way to call for help. She tried to calm her racing heart, whispering to herself, "It's okay, it's just a shadow, you're just seeing things." She squeezed her eyes shut, counted to 3, and then slowly opened them again, praying that whatever she was seeing would be gone. It wasn't. In fact, it was worse. The man had moved. He was no longer at the end of the hall. He was closer. He hadn't walked. Melissa said it was more like he had glided. A slow, silent drift forward. He was now halfway down the hall, and the air in her bedroom suddenly felt cold. Not just a little chilly, but a deep, penetrating cold that settled into her bones. It was the middle of July in Ohio, a hot and humid summer. But right there in her room, she could see her own breath fogging in the air. The figure continued its silent advance. The closer it got, the colder the room became. The temperature dropped so dramatically that a thin layer of frost started to form on the inside of her bedroom window. Melissa was paralyzed with a type of fear she had never known was possible. This wasn't just a break-in. This was something else entirely, something unnatural. The figure was now just outside her bedroom door, a towering, featureless void. She could feel an intense pressure in the room, a heavy, oppressive energy that made it hard to breathe. She was completely cornered, with nowhere to run. She pulled the covers up to her chin, a flimsy, useless shield against the impossible thing that stood before her. She braced herself for it to step into her room, for it to finally reveal itself. And then, it was gone. In the blink of an eye, it just vanished. It didn't walk away. It didn't fade. It was there 1 second, and the next, the hallway was empty. It was like someone had just switched off a projector. The intense cold dissipated instantly, and the oppressive feeling in the room lifted. The hallway was empty. The light was still on. Silence returned. Melissa didn't sleep for the rest of the night. She sat bolt upright in her bed, staring at the empty hallway, until the first rays of dawn crept through her window. The moment the sun was up, she finally found the courage to move. She grabbed a heavy lamp from her nightstand and crept out of her room, checking every corner, every closet, the entire house. There was nothing. No sign of a break-in. The doors were still locked from the inside. The windows were all secure. There were no footprints, no disturbed items, nothing out of place. It was as if the entire event had been a figment of her imagination, a waking nightmare. Shaking, she finally made her way to the kitchen to get her phone. That's when she discovered the strangest part of the entire ordeal. Her hallway light was connected to a motion sensor, part of her smart home system. It was designed to turn on when it detected movement and turn off after a few minutes of inactivity. When she checked the activity log on her phone, her blood ran cold. The log showed that the hallway light had been triggered multiple times throughout the night. Specifically, between 2 a.m. and 3 a.m., at time of the incident, there were 4 separate motion sensor activations. Something had been moving in her hallway. Something the system had detected. But what? And how did it move without making a single sound? Melissa still lives in that house with her husband. They've had the house blessed, and they've installed more security cameras. But the memory of that night has never left her. She says she doesn't know what she saw: a ghost, an entity, a glitch in reality, but she knows it was real. And to this day, there's one rule in their house that is never, ever broken. She never, ever sleeps with the bedroom door open anymore. Alright, let's dive into another one of your submissions. This one comes from Jake, a college student who wants to make it very clear that he was not drunk, high, or even particularly tired when this all went down. It was a completely normal Wednesday night. Well, almost. He was in his dorm room, deep in the grind, cramming for his finals. It was late, probably around 1:15 in the morning, and he decided to get up and refill his water bottle to power through the rest of the night. To get to the water fountain, he had to walk down the main hallway, past the communal bathroom. Now, this hallway was your typical old, slightly run-down campus building kind of place. The overhead lights were notorious for flickering constantly. It was just one of those quirks of the building everyone had gotten used to. It added to the whole late-night study session vibe. You know, a little bit creepy, but nothing out of the ordinary. But on this particular night, something was different. As Jake walked down the hall, the lights did their usual flicker, but then one of them just stopped. It froze mid-blink, casting the hallway in this weird, strobing, almost frozen-in-time kind of light. And it was in that split second, in that single, unnatural flash of light, that Jake saw her, standing just a few feet away from him. Right outside the bathroom door was a figure. It was a little girl. He guessed she was maybe 8 or 9 years old. The most striking thing about her was what she was wearing, a bright yellow dress. It stood out so vividly against the dim, flickering background. She was perfectly still, just standing there, not moving a single muscle. Her gaze was fixed straight ahead, staring intently at the closed bathroom door. Jake said his mind immediately went into overdrive, trying to rationalize what he was seeing. His first thought was that maybe she was someone's little sister visiting. It was a long shot, but what other explanation could there be? But then reality hit him. Who in their right mind brings a small child to a college dorm at 1 o'clock in the morning, especially during finals week, when the entire building is either a ghost town or filled with stressed-out, sleep-deprived students? It just made absolutely no sense. He felt this wave of concern wash over him. She looked so lost, so out of place. He opened his mouth to say something, anything to break the bizarre silence. He was aiming for a simple, "Hey, are you okay?" But before the words could even fully form, the lights did it again. They flickered one more time, a quick, sharp blink. And just like that, she was gone, vanished, into thin air. One moment she was there, a solid, physical presence, in a yellow dress. The next, there was nothing but the empty, flickering hallway. Jake froze. The rational part of his brain was screaming, but the primal, instinctual part took over. He said a jolt of pure adrenaline shot through him. He sprinted the rest of the way to the bathroom, his heart pounding in his chest. He threw the door open, expecting what he didn't know what to expect. He checked every single stall, yanking the doors open one by one. He looked behind the shower curtains, in the small janitorial closet, everywhere. The bathroom was completely empty. There was no sound of running footsteps, no door creaking open or shut down the hall, just absolute, dead silence. Slightly defeated and thoroughly freaked out, he walked back out into the hallway. The lights were back to their normal, annoying flicker. Everything looked exactly as it had, just moments before. He started to wonder if he'd imagined it all. Maybe the stress from finals was finally getting to him. Maybe he'd just been staring at the flickering lights for too long and his brain had created a phantom image. He took a deep breath and started walking back towards his room, trying to calm his racing heart. And that's when he saw something that made every hair on his body stand on end. Something that confirmed he wasn't going crazy. There, on the worn linoleum floor, was a single, wet footprint. It was small, the size of a child's foot. And it was a bare foot. The print was glistening under the flickering fluorescent lights, a stark, dark shape on the pale floor. He followed it with his eyes, and his blood ran cold. The footprint wasn't leading toward the bathroom, or the exit, or another dorm room. It was leading directly toward his own door. Jake didn't sleep a wink that night. He said he just sat on his bed, staring at his door, listening for any sound, any footstep, until the sun came up. The next day, he packed a bag and started crashing at a friend's place across campus. He couldn't bring himself to spend another night in that room, in that hallway. He finished the rest of the semester sleeping on his friend's couch, only going back to his own dorm to grab books during the day. A week or so later, after his finals were done, he was turning in his keys to his dorm's RA. He was still shaken by the experience and, on a whim, decided to mention it. He tried to sound casual, not wanting to come off as crazy. He said something like, "Hey, weird question, but have you ever heard any stories about weird stuff happening in the North Hallway?" The RA, a senior who had been living in the building for years, just gave him this knowing, tired look. She didn't laugh or look confused. She just sighed and said, "Oh, you saw her too?" Jake was stunned. Her, who? And that's when the RA told him the story. The legend. Apparently, dozens of students over the years had reported seeing the exact same thing. A little girl in a bright yellow dress, standing silently in that hallway, always near the communal bathroom. The stories started way back in the early 90s, before the current dorm was built. A different building stood on that exact spot. It was an old apartment complex that had tragically burned down in a massive fire. The story goes that a family with a young daughter lived on the floor where the dorm's third-floor hallway now stands. During the fire, the little girl got trapped. She was trying to get to the bathroom to use the water to protect herself, but the smoke was too thick, the heat too intense. She never made it out. They found her right behind the hallway door. Ever since the new dorm was built, her spirit has been seen wandering that same stretch of hallway. She always appears in the same place, wearing the same yellow dress. People say she shows up most often during the winter, especially around finals week, when the building is quiet and the stress levels are high. She just stands there, watching the bathroom door, waiting, as if she's still trying to get to the water, still trying to escape a fire that happened decades ago. Jake wasn't the first person to see her, and according to the RA, he definitely won't be the last. So, what do you think? Was Jake just a victim of finals week stress, or did he have a genuine encounter with the ghost of the girl in the yellow dress? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. And if you have a story of your own you'd like me to share, you know where to send it. Alright, let's dive into a story that genuinely sent a shiver down my spine the first time I heard it. This one comes from a nurse named Leela, who was pulling late-night shifts at a small and quiet hospital deep in rural Texas. Like a lot of these older, smaller hospitals, it was pretty underused. Most nights, it felt half empty, and there was this entire section, the Old West Wing, that had been completely shut down for years. They said it was because of renovation issues, but you know how these things go. So, one night, it's around 3 a.m., the absolute dead of night. Lila is doing her routine rounds, checking on patients, making sure everything is calm. As she passes the nurse's station, she glances at the security monitors, and that's when she sees it. In the hallway leading to the abandoned West Wing, the motion sensor lights are flicking on, one after another, as if someone is walking down it. Her first thought was logical. It must be security doing a sweep. It was a bit unusual, but not impossible. But then she looked closer at the monitor feed for that specific hallway, and her blood ran cold. There was a figure, a person, standing perfectly still, right at the very end of the hall. The weirdest part, they were facing the wall, their back to the camera. The quality of the feed wasn't great. It was old tech, so all she could make out was the faint outline of a person wearing what looked like a standard-issue hospital gown. No other details, just this static, silent figure. Immediately, Lila's nurse instincts kicked in. She thought maybe a patient, someone confused or sleepwalking, had wandered off and somehow gotten into the closed-off wing. She quickly grabbed a coworker, another nurse named Ben, who was working the floor with her. She explained what she saw on the monitor, and they both decided to go check it out. Safety in numbers. Right. They headed towards the heavy double doors that sealed off the West Wing. There was a big sign on it. No entry authorized, personnel only. Lila used her keycard, and the moment the doors creaked open, a blast of freezing air hit them like a physical wall. It was so much colder than the rest of the climate-controlled hospital, and the smell, it was thick and strange. It was that familiar, sharp scent of antiseptic, but it was mixed with something else, something metallic and old, like rust, or maybe even dried blood. It was a smell that just felt wrong. Their hearts were pounding, but they had to make sure a patient wasn't in danger. They stepped into the darkened hallway, their footsteps echoing loudly in the silence. The motion lights that had been on were now off, plunging the corridor into near blackness, except for the bit of light spilling from the main hospital behind them. Lila called out, her voice sounding small and shaky. "Hello, is anyone there? Are you okay?" Ben called out too, but there was only silence. A heavy, listening kind of silence. They walked slowly down the hall, their phone flashlights cutting through the gloom, revealing dust-covered floors and cobwebs hanging from the ceiling. They reached the end of the corridor, the spot where she'd seen the figure on the camera, but there was no one there. It was completely empty. They were about to turn back, chalking it up to a glitchy camera or their minds playing tricks on them in the dead of night. But then they noticed it. One door, along the long row of identical, sealed patient rooms, was slightly ajar. Room 304. This was impossible. Lila knew for a fact that every room in this wing was supposed to be sealed shut. Maintenance had bolted them years ago. Yet, this one was open. Just a crack, beckoning them in. Against their better judgment, they pushed the door open. The room was just as you'd expect. Covered in a thick layer of dust, old rusted medical equipment was pushed into a corner. A single bare hospital bed sat in the middle of the room, its mattress yellowed with age. There was nothing else. No person, no sign of anyone having been there recently. They were about to leave, feeling a mix of relief and confusion, when Lila's flashlight beam caught something on the wall. Just above the head of the empty bed, scrawled in what looked like a thick, black marker, was a single word: stay. Lila said that's the moment pure terror took over. They didn't scream, they didn't hesitate. They just turned and ran. They bolted out of that room, down the freezing hallway, slammed the doors to the West Wing shut behind them, and didn't stop until they were back in the bright, safe light of the nurse's station, hearts hammering against their ribs. They immediately reported the incident to hospital security. The security chief, a skeptical old guy, came down to review the footage with them. They rewound the tape to the exact moment Lila saw the figure. And this is the part that makes the story so much more than just a spooky encounter. On the recording, the motion sensor lights turned on, one by one, exactly as Lila had described. You could see them illuminating the empty hallway, but on the camera feed itself, there was nothing there. No figure, no person standing at the end of the hall. The hallway was completely, undeniably empty. The lights were being triggered by something the camera couldn't see. As for the open door and the word on the wall, the security chief and a maintenance worker went to check. When they came back, they looked pale. They confirmed the door to room 304 was indeed unlocked. And the word stay was right there on the wall. They couldn't explain it. No one had a keycard record of entering that wing for over 2 years. After that night, things changed. The west wing was sealed off even more securely. Room 304 was not only resealed, but a heavy-duty padlock was placed on the outside of the door for good measure. Officially, the incident was written off as a prank by an unknown party, but everyone who worked there knew that wasn't the truth. No one could explain how someone got in, left no trace on the cameras, and then vanished. To this day, the staff at that hospital avoid that entire section. It's become an unspoken rule. Lila doesn't work there anymore, but she keeps in touch with her old co-workers. They say that sometimes, when the hospital is quiet and the night is deep, you can still see a faint light flickering from under the door of room 304. A dim, unsteady glow, almost like a candle, or maybe a television screen, as if someone is still in there, pacing back and forth behind the locked door, waiting. Thank you so much for watching. If you have a story you'd like to share, send it over to me. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more chilling tales. Stay safe out there.